Aloha. Welcome to Live Yoga Channel. I am Tara, the metabolic therapist. I'm so happy to welcome you here to the Trust Your Gut Club. Today, let's talk about all things digestive wellness. And we create this space. I create this space on Tuesdays at noon Hawaii time to invite you to a space to talk about what's real for you, what kind of questions you might have. Feel free to go ahead and type them in the chat. And then this is a great way for me to share without and still keep you private and your information private. So thanks so much for joining. I have some things I'd love to talk about, but I want to very much have this be a place for you to share and get some questions answered. So please, as you join in, send a hello, let me know what you're interested in. And today, what I want to share with you is around fat fasting, specifically for weight loss. Maybe you've heard of it. Maybe you're like, what is this? So fasting, which is becoming all the rage. Maybe you've heard about intermittent fasting, also known as IF. I started incorporating that into my lifestyle back in 2017, and learning how to flex that fasting muscle has become one of my most relied upon tools for keeping my metabolism healthy and strong, my metabolic functions healthy and strong, and keeps me fit, trim, and feeling strong. So happy to share more with you. Fat fasting is especially good for those of us as we're considering the idea of fasting, but the idea of like going without food causes stress just thinking about it. When I work with my clients one-on-one, first and foremost, we try and eliminate some of the major offenders in our diets, often the PUFA oils or the rancid seed oils like canola oil and vegetable oil, soybean oil, just get those out, as well as refined carbohydrates. So carbohydrates such as bread and grains and pastas and such. And this is a huge feat for many that have been raised on a carbohydrate dependent diet, and many of us growing up, especially here in the United States, I grew up with like TV dinners and snack stands and, lots of processed, white breads and such. So definitely other than whole food nutrition. Yet when we switch over to a low carb lifestyle, the ketogenic diet, primal diet, paleo even, all of these diets help to bring us into more whole food nutrition and lowers our carb dependence, our carbohydrate addictions and such. Because oftentimes, especially if you feel like after you eat that you've got to crash, you've got to take a nap, or even like 2 hours later, you're still looking for some more food. This is letting you know that your idea is your body is running on sugar, and as a sugar burner, this can cause all sorts of inflammatory responses in the body that include insulin spikes and insulin resistance, which is a very big problem here in the Western world these days. I've seen a graph recently. Let me close the door. I've seen a graph recently that shows high fructose corn syrup, its use around the world, and then also another graph showing concerns or numbers increasing with prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. Well, out of all the countries in the world, the US is like the highest use of high fructose corn syrup, as well as the growing morbidly obese, chronic inflammation, and type 2 diabetes and prediabetes. So getting people off of that crazy train of sugar dependency is something that I'm super passionate. And if you've known me before, I love gut health And it's how is our body working each day to support our most vibrant health. So shifting the gut bacteria, the microbiome, it's no easy feat, yet changing the fueling system is a great way to get started. So enter fat fasting. Now, fat fasting is a way to get your body to experience satiety. So oftentimes when we sit down to a meal and it just seems like we're not even getting satisfied, or we're continuously hungry. Again, this is a side effect of being dependent as a sugar burner. Now, when we switch over to eating fats and fats only, olives, bacon, eggs, it's really important to me where this food comes from, and getting cleanly sourced, buying local and organic is very important to me anyway. So eating fat like olives, avocados, ghee and butter, grass-fed, grass-finished, and keeping nuts and nuts away would be helpful. But I love to share and promote liquids. So this might be like through like a fat coffee drink. I love to put Kerrygold butter and coconut oil in my coffee in the morning, blend it up with a little bit of stevia, and it's so good. and then what that does is the fat creates satiety, and that fat gives my body energy, and it keeps me satiated and less hungry longer. And so the idea of fat fasting, where you're eating only fat, the idea is to eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, and then to keep, it can come off as like a boring, meal plan, yet 1 or 2 days of it. And actually, one of the case studies I really like is a gentleman was having a hard time just wrapping his. I can't even imagine doing a full day fasting, without foods. Like, it was causing stress just thinking about it. And so we said, okay, like, let's, would you be willing to eat a limited diet of only fat, bacon, and eggs for 2 weeks? And what happened, it was a big, he was laughing at first. Oh, sure, no problem. And then the next time we got to see him, he was on day 4 of his fast. And what happened is that the elimination protocol, by removing a lot of the foods that could be inflammatory in nature, removing a lot of those, keeping only fats in, it feeds the body, gives it satiety, so you feel more satiated. And then it makes switching into fasting so much easier. And this is why maybe you've heard that like a ketogenic diet works very well with intermittent fasting. Also known as like a low carb lifestyle is very supportive for a fasting lifestyle. And with fasting, it's all about getting started and then building that muscle, because it's true. I've been doing it for years, and there definitely are times where I still need to like mental muscle through it. And where I lean into fat fasting is especially after the holidays, if there's been more carbohydrate intake, and then that starts to spike cravings and for certain foods, switching over to fat fasting, it's really helpful to get back into the low carb and high fat lifestyle that just keeps me feeling strong, energetic, and full of life and vitality to share with you. So what do you think? Let me know. Have you considered trying fat fasting? Have you tried it? What worked well for you? Feel free to make a note here. Let me know. You can also reach out to me if you're watching this later to send a note. I'm so happy to talk story with folks about their unique circumstances, because, especially as we look along the World Wide Web for anything, health related, we can find an article supporting one cause as well as an article putting it down and saying like why it's not true. So at the end of the day, we gather information and then try it on ourselves and see how does our body respond. And why fasting is so great. It's incredible. To the fat fasting also. Fat fasting will kick us into ketosis more quickly. And then that when our body, which creates ketones in the liver, so when the liver is delivering ketones to the bloodstream, and then our body is then working on fuel that is ketogenic, so we're running on fat as opposed to sugar, then what happens is fasting becomes easier. It becomes, we definitely like, it just becomes more natural. Like, oh, I'm not hungry. I don't need to eat, even though it's that scheduled dinner time. Actually, I'm going to go for a walk or do this project at my house or, you know, anything that works for you. But it's amazing to witness how implementing a fat fast is super helpful to get over the mental hump, as well as to kick that body into ketosis. So it feels satiated and easier to then bump up into the next phase of fasting that could work for you. All right. Well, I'm Tara, the metabolic therapist. Super happy to have you here with the Trust Your Gut Club. We meet on Tuesdays, and I feel curious, what other subjects are you happy to talk about? I love to talk about all things diet and lifestyle, how we can sleep better, how we can best take care of our guts and create ease along our systems, because stress, lack of sleep, you know, modern lifestyle, too much screen time, you know, these all impact our ability to rest and digest, you know. So oftentimes if we're working in the fight or flight part of the brain, which is back here in the back of the brain, we're multitasking, doing way too many things at once. Sometimes like even thinking clearly can become overwhelming because there's confusion. There's just too much going on. And then when there's stress, we're still living back here, which the fight or flight response was developed through our evolution as a way to support ourselves, and we're not meant to be in it like consistently. And so, you know, many of us know that that's, you know, not so bueno. And so what we do is we try and, you know, through meditation, it helps to bring the awareness and the focus of the brain right here to the front of the brain and the frontal cortex, which helps to soothe the brain, also initiates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is also the rest and digest. So this should be happening for us. It's very different than crashing after a carb heavy meal. And yet, you know, the rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system, it helps to regulate and bring harmony to this beautiful body temple. So really important that we focus on strategies that support our nervous system, living in not only the fight or flight, you know, because that's just supposed to be relied upon, you know, certain times of the day, or like when we're running from a bear, which, you know, doesn't really happen these days. So overactivating it causes increased stress response and inflammatory response in the body. And then so we're wondering why we're so achy or puffy and, you know, not able to think clearly. Okay. So let me know if you have any questions, anything else you'd like to talk about today. I'm really grateful that you're here with me. Thanks so much. We'll be back again here on Live Yoga channel Thursday morning. I'll be leading a classical Huff practice. It's an hour 15 minutes. Great way to get started with motivation for your day. It's a incredible sequence that's classical in nature. We are inspired by our teacher, Yogi Charu. And last year when we all got forced to go inside for the 2020 lockdown, my sweetheart and I, Evan, we got inspired to see how we can cultivate virtual Sangha. How can we create connection and have practices together so that even during these funky times, we're still supporting each other with our best selves. All right, Ohana, My name's Tara, the metabolic therapist. I'm signing off for now. Please join again. Let me know what you liked. And also feel free to set up a discovery call with me. This is a free 20-minute call to talk about your situation and see how my programs can be helpful for you. All right. Thanks so much for joining. Have a beautiful day. Mahalo nui loa. Aloha.